Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I've got a little bit of a different type of video for you here today, in which you won't have to look at me talk while I tell you about the albums that I wanted to highlight today. A little bit in the tradition of Bog Phantom's early videos, if you remember him. This is just kind of a coincidence that this video will wind up being similar to the content that he used to make, but I've been listening to a lot of non-metal music, and it's deeply affected by the cold weather that I've been enjoying here. We've had some sub-zero temperatures. We've had days where the highs were in the -9 or so, -10 or so. It was like our coldest day. So it's been windy, blustery, cold, and snowy, and pretty inhospitable to most people. But I actually really like this time of year. It's quiet. There's just white stuff on everything, everywhere you look. It's really pretty, and I always kind of wind up gravitating toward music that sort of lends to the atmosphere of this kind of music. So I put together a playlist or a mixtape or whatever you want to call it to for you guys to enjoy whenever you want to play it. But it's music that I think just kind of fits this sort of wintry time of year. It's mostly acoustic, kind of pastoral winter kind of music. It doesn't really, I guess, fit inside of a genre all that perfectly. You might kind of call some of this stuff neo-folk, kind of bordering on neo-folk, if anything. But really, I just think of this kind of these albums as winter music. So, in the link down below the video, you can go to my 8 Tracks website page, and you can play my playlist. I'm also going to be talking about the albums in this video. So, whenever you want to, whenever this video is done, if you're curious, go ahead and check out the playlist. I picked a track from each one of these albums for you to listen to, and it works really well as a little mixtape kind of play thing. I like 8 Tracks quite a bit more than Spotify, for instance, because I am the one who uploads this music to the website. So you don't have to succumb to Spotify and picking music that they have made available. This music, a lot of it is super underground, and so you might not have know about it otherwise, and you probably wouldn't have been able to find a lot of this stuff on Spotify or Rhapsody or Groove Shark or whatever the hell you use to put your playlists together. So I hope you like my 8 Tracks playlist. So I'm going to be showing some winter scenery from around my area and one of my favorite places to hike as I talk about these records. So I don't know, I hope this turns into a pretty good video. I hope you like it. It's going to be quite a project for editing together and stuff like that, but I'm really looking forward to jumping into this and making something kind of unique. So let's get into it, I guess, with the albums. The first song that I've chosen is from a Chinese act called Vergus Meinecht. It's kind of weird that it's a Chinese act playing this kind of music. But anyways, the track that I chose was Whispering Solitude, and it's from the album Whispering Solitude. It came out in 2008. It's just really, of all this kind of music that I like, this in this whole playlist is really like gentle and just real dulcet kind of music. It's just real subtle and real calm and peaceful. I don't really know much about the Vergus Meinecht project. It seems like a pretty underground kind of thing. Probably pretty hard to come by a copy of this record, so I don't actually have a copy of it. Next song I have on the list here is by a project I recently discovered called Ulvasong. They're a Canadian group. Their album is self-titled from 2015. Ulvasong is the album. And I'm really looking forward to, they have a new album coming out soon on Nordvis. Kind of reminds me quite a bit of Ulver's Veltsanger, which really is kind of like the centerpiece around this whole list. All this music, I think, can pretty much, you could say, if you like Ulver's acoustic album Veltsanger, you should probably be pretty much into all this stuff on this list. So Ulvasong, I don't really know much about them either, but they're Canada. Got a couple of members in them. They have some really interesting instrumentation. And yeah, Nordvis is going to be putting out their record. The next album I have on here is by a group called Elend. They're from France, and 3 of their albums had just a brilliant vocalist on their albums. It's kind of like dark wave music. It isn't necessarily acoustic like all the other stuff on here. In fact, this is probably kind of one of the oddball, standout kind of tracks on the list. But it's kind of like dark orchestral sort of music. It's real brooding and kind of builds and ebbs and flows in intensity. But it has this just super amazing vocalist on there. I don't really feel like I've ever heard opera music that resonated at all with me, because it always seems like opera is like conversational, you know, they're acting out some sort of play, and that is what opera is, as far as I know, with my limited understanding of it. But the way that she uses her operatic voice on this album and these 3 albums is just really a lot more song oriented rather than more dramatic and play oriented. Her name is Natalie Barbary, and she sings on this album Weeping Nights, which is by far and away my favorite Elend album. So it's operatic stuff. It's real kind of intense. It has super dramatic and dark. Just when I heard this, I'm not sure how I ever found out about Elend, but for some reason they've always been kind of associated with the metal world for some reason or another. A couple of their albums have some sort of like black metal screeching going on, and so I guess maybe in their demo days or something they started out as maybe having a few metal elements here and there, but really they've just always been kind of like darlings of the metal world. But anyways, Natalie sang on the first 3 albums. No, I'm sorry, not the first 3 albums, actually. Le Ténèbres du Dehors, Weeping Nights, and The Umber Sun. These albums came out in 96, 97, and 98. So Weeping Nights came out in 97. I've just always loved this album. From the moment I heard it, I think I might have even blind bought it when I was about 19 or 20 years old, but it's just always stuck with me, and I've always loved it. So I hope you like the track on here. Weeping Nights, it's the album opener. So the next song I've chosen, and I've talked about Londum quite a bit on this channel here, but I really couldn't pull together this mix without putting a Londum track on here. It's my favorite track from my favorite album by them, Wilderness 12 Capital, from 2010. Acoustic stuff with vocals. It's real kind of campfire, sort of tongue-in-cheek, I guess, almost acoustic music. The next track I've chosen is by a group called Arrowwood, which is from the United States. Arrowwood is a solo project from the United States. Its sole member's name is Chelsea Robb, and this track that I chose is from her debut record from 2006 called Hemlock and Spindle Flower. In the middle of the album, the song resides. It's called All Things Rise. And you may actually have heard this song already. The project that I was in for a little minute, called When Bitter Spring Sleeps, did a cover of this song. Kind of made a black metal version of this song for the Panopticon split that we did a couple of years ago. So I just really wanted to highlight this brilliant track on this mix and give you a chance to hear the original version if by chance you're familiar with the cover that we did. So yeah, the debut record, Hemlock and Spindle Flower from Arrowwood, great album. There's also, I think she is also in a project called Novem 3, which is also pretty good, kind of similar. But I didn't put any Novem 3 on this mix. But next we've got Nest from Finland, from the album Woodsmoke. The song has just always stood out for me in Nest's records. The song is called The Silver Shade Links, and this is from the Woodsmoke album from 2003. Again, I don't really know much about Nest, other than they play mainly most of their albums are composed on the traditional Finnish instrument, the kantele, which is kind of like a stringed, somewhere between, I guess, like dulcimer and a guitar. But I think Nest, what they do is they put a microphone on it and kind of distort it and make it sound a lot more clear. I might be making that up, I'm not sure, but anyways, it's a really beautiful sounding instrument. Nest is instrumental, at least on this Woodsmoke record. I haven't heard, as far as I know, all of Nest's material, but this Woodsmoke album and the Trail of the Unwary album are the two that I always reach for. You may be familiar with Nest because they did a split with Agalloch back in 2004. That's really well reviewed. I don't know if I've ever heard that actually, but yeah, Woodsmoke and Trail of the Unwary are just amazing stuff from Nest. The next track on here is by a band called The Moon Lay Hidden Beneath a Cloud. This is a side project or solo project, not solo, of Albin Julius from Der Blue-Darsh that he did with his wife. What was her name? Her name escapes me at the minute, but they use a sampler to pull some really interesting sort of samples from movies or militaristic sort of songs or things like that, and she just lays over this super witchy sort of charismatic music or singing over the top of this sample sort of martial music, and this, out of all, this whole playlist is not going to be very acoustic at all. But for some reason, I just always reach for The Moonlight Hidden Beneath the Cloud when this time of year hits. This album, A New Soldier Follows the Path of a New King, came out in '95. And the funny thing about The Moonlight Hidden Beneath the Cloud is, even though they have something like 5 or 6 albums, and each album has between like 15 and maybe 25 tracks on it, none of their songs have titles. They just have numbers. So this is the 3rd track from A New Soldier Follows the Path of a New King from their 1985 record. Next, I've got a really obscure act called Valery's Kin, and the song is called To Each His Own. Now, this is a pretty strange find for me. A friend of mine sent me a link to Valery's Kin on MySpace back when MySpace was a real thing. And he had a couple of songs on his page on there, and I loved them. I just automatically loved them. It's kind of interesting. It's really amateurly recorded sort of neo-folk. There's great kind of whispered vocals, and the instrumentation is pretty interesting. The kind of things that he incorporates into the music makes it a pretty unique act. But as far as I know, he never did a physical release of any of his songs, and I can't find. I've spent many hours trying to find any information on Valery's Kin, and all I've really managed to find is a couple of MP3s on the MySpace page. So what I've done is I actually was able to rip those songs off of the MySpace page. I've collected really every song that I can find out there, and I put them on a MediaFire file that you can download from my MediaFire page. I'll put a link down below in the video. I know this might sound like I'm like stealing the guy's music or something, but I feel like if I hadn't collected this guy's songs from this MySpace page from 2002, this music would completely disappear, because there doesn't seem to be any existence of this guy's music outside of this MySpace page. So I don't know, I would just hate to let this music vanish into obscurity, because I seriously can't find any other path of this guy's existence throughout the internet. So download, if you like the Valery's Kin song on this mix, go ahead and download the whole demo. And I don't know if someone from Valery's Kin knows anything about this that you can tell me to take it down. I will, for sure. But this is some brilliant music that I would just hate to see vanish into obscurity. Next, I've chosen a song from Sangre de Muerdago, which is a Spanish act. They do some really, really amazing stuff. I'm not sure, again, I don't really know very much about this group, but they have, I think, 2 or 3 albums. This album is called A Camino de Mans Valieras from 2015. Super brilliant acoustic work. This is a little bit more, I guess, in the style of like flamenco sort of acoustic guitar, and I'm using that term with no authority whatsoever. I don't know really what what constitutes flamenco music, but that's just kind of the way I hear it when I'm thinking of it. Anyways, brilliant, brilliant stuff. There's some really super great mournful sort of vocals over this music, and yeah, this is a great act. I see too, I think maybe a metal label put out this album because I see it in distros pretty often, and can't really recommend the album enough. It's just an amazing, beautiful, brilliant album. I'm pretty sure you can pick it up on Bandcamp for mere dollars, and you got to do that if you can. Next is Imperium. A lot of you may know Imperium. They started out as a metal band with their album A Winter Sunset, and a couple of other of their albums have a little bit more doom metal incorporated. But this album in particular, Where at Night the Woodgrouse Plays, from 1999, it contains no metal. It's all acoustic. There is a little bit of choral vocals here and there. But man, the songwriting on this album is just fucking amazing. This track here is also kind of one of the centerpieces in this whole playlist, and I listen to this album really throughout the year, but when it's like kind of dark and cold and in the winter and it's really snowy out, I really, really, really love this album. They've got a lot of violins and a lot of extra sort of instrumentation, so really the breadth of this album takes on a whole lot bigger sort of persona than something more minimal like some of the other tracks on here. So yeah, Imperium, great band. I really like all of their stuff from before they broke up. They got back together a couple of years ago and reunited and did a new album that I didn't really like that much, but all the acoustic stuff is just super, super brilliant, especially Where at Night the Woodgrouse Plays. And really in the same vein is a Norwegian group called Valery. Their album For Lot came out in 2004, limited to 50 mere copies of it. Somehow somebody managed to rip one of those copies of those albums back then, and I was able to download it. I found out about it, I guess, on a metal forum back in the day. Checked it out and just instantly fell in love with this album. Luckily, a couple of years later, a different label picked it up in 2013 and reissued it both on CD and vinyl. But these compositions, man, just amazing, brilliant, brilliant compositions. There's violin. I believe it's all instrumental too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, just this is one of the super great standouts on this mix here. They also did another follow-up to the album in 2013. So the first album was 2004 and the follow-up was 2013. And it also came out on that label, Auerbach Tontrager. The album is called Skogslandskap. And it's really just on par with the debut. It's pretty much every bit as good as the debut. It's a brilliant album. Still need to pick up a copy of it. But yeah, that is Valery. Hope you like that. That's just super, super good acoustic stuff. And I think out of all this whole list, this Valery would probably be the closest in similarity to the Ulver's Kveldsanger album. Next, I chose a song from Forndom's Daudra Dura album, which came out in 2016. Also on the Nordvis label. I don't know much about Forndom, but this is some very interesting, compelling, powerful, super powerful, sort of contemplative, ritualistic, minimalistic music. It's really intense and dark, but it also somehow finds a way to kind of be really beautiful. So I don't really know much about it. I think they're Swedish, and I've heard Forndom live is one of the most amazing things. some of my friends have ever seen live. So I hope you check out Forndom. This album is really, really good. It's kind of one of those albums that's really great to put on whenever you can't think of what to listen to, and it just kind of really always hits the spot. Got a lot of interesting variety to the album. Next, I chose a song from a group called Blood and Sun. The album is called White Storms Fall, and the song is called Cedar Smoke. This album came out on LP in 2013 on Passanta Urfolk. I first became aware of the band Blood and Sun because my friend Tanner, who plays in Obsequii, actually played dulcimer on this band's album, White Storms Fall. So it's really great stuff. It's a lot more like singer-songwriter-y kind of stuff. It's definitely more vocal-oriented than any of the other music on this list. So it works in a way that, you know, a singer-songwriter kind of would. But there's a lot of interesting instrumentation going on with the dulcimer, violin. I think there's even a timpani drum going on. Great, well-written songs. They're really memorable and powerful. It's kind of like foot-stomping, sort of martial, militaristic kind of stuff. So, Blood and Sun, hope you like that track. And the next, I had to put a song from Ulver's Kveldsanger on here, because that album is just fucking brilliant. It's just the end-all, be-all acoustic metal album. If you know what I mean, if that makes any sense. I chose, I think, track 8 on there. Next, I've got a song from Of the Wand and the Moon. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of Of the Wand and the Moon. I really like his album Sonnenheim from 2005, and I chose the song Summer Solstice. Great stuff from Denmark, if I'm not mistaken. He actually did a tour with Blood and Sun a couple of years ago in Europe. Played a couple shows, and I think they even collaborated on a couple of songs too. And to close out the whole playlist, I chose a song from a band called Neutral. The album is called Serpents in the Dawn. It came out in 2008, and this is the title track from them. Don't really know the first thing about Neutral. I'd really like to pick up a copy of this album, but I first became aware of Neutral just a couple of years ago. I've never really ventured outside of this album. It's one of those acts that's just like, I don't often get in the mood for this kind of thing, but when I do, I want only this album, because there's no way that their other material could possibly be as good as this Serpents in the Dawn album. That might not be true. I could be totally wrong, but for some reason this album just clicks with me super well. It's a lot more, I guess, maybe a little bit more gothic influenced vocally than a lot of this kind of stuff. It's got a lot more vocals than a lot of this instrumental kind of stuff does, but this song just really stuck with me when I first heard it. Every time I listen to the album, this is the highlight for the album, the title track on here. So that actually does it for my playlist. I hope you dug all the footage and stuff I put together and shot for it. Let me know if there's any music, I guess, that you think would fit well in this playlist. And really, I encourage you to sign up for 8Tracks. I think it's a really cool service. You can put all your own tracks up there, and I think if you pay $3 a month, you can have the upgraded package or whatever, and there's no ads whatsoever when you're listening or anything. There's a couple other perks on there, and $3 a month for a thing like that is kind of nice. Especially when Spotify just fucking sucks so much. Anyways, I'm going to quit ranting. Thanks for joining me once again. Hope you liked the video, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Just a shadow